So, hello everyone. Before we begin, everyone in the audience, except our first speakers and our moderator, please mute yourselves and until the Q&A session. Also, the conference will be recorded, and please turn off your camera during the first part of the conference. You can turn on your camera during the Q&A session. So we are delighted to welcome you tonight for the first conference of the year of Restart, the Association for Digital Entrepreneurship at Sciences Po. This conference is co-organized with our partner ASSOMarket, the Association of Sciences Po Marketing Masters. So first, I would like to thank our distinguished guests and speakers this evening, Antonio Achille, Fiona Disegni, Olivier Cadinot, and Zornitza Stefanova. It's an honor for us to welcome you all tonight. Then, thank you to the many participants present this evening. We know that there are many Sciences Po students among you, but also others of various backgrounds and in different countries. Finally, I would like to thank our partner, ASSOMarket, especially their president, Rosia. Thanks also to Dongxin from BSPK, with whom we have been in contact almost daily since last few days. She was still a student at Sciences Po 2 years ago. And needless to say, thank you very much to all the members of Restart. We have been very involved in the preparation of this conference, especially Natasha, our president, Pauline, and Madeleine. So at the end of the conference, there will be a 20 minutes Q&A session. We are then inviting everyone to submit all the questions you want. And you will have the possibility either to ask questions directly yourself with camera, which will be fun, or you can also write your questions in the chat, and our moderator will read the questions. So for a question in the chat, you can post them throughout all the conference or during the Q&A session only. I've already talked too much, so I will now quickly introduce our moderator before giving her the floor. So we are very honored and thrilled to have as our moderator Laure Guilbault, who is the Paris correspondent for Vogue Business. Laure is a highly respected journalist covering the Parisian luxury and fashion industry. After several high-flying years in New York, she returned to France in 2012 to write for Women's Wear Daily, Les Echos, and the Business of Fashion website. So enjoy the conference, and Laure, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Antonin. What a lovely introduction. Wow, 2020 is the year that many of us would rather forget. The pandemic pushed the industry to a record slump, forcing stores to close and preventing Chinese tourists, the lifeblood of luxury, from traveling to make big-ticket purchases abroad. However, already some brands are emerging stronger as they think like innovators, harness the power of digital storytelling and data, while drawing inspiration from China. I'm very excited about the panels that we have today. We'll be hearing from very interesting speakers from Silicon Valley, from Milan, London, and Paris. So let's get going. Zornitza Stefanova is the founder and CEO of BSPK, a company born in Silicon Valley with luxury clients including Bonpoint and other luxury brands. A serial entrepreneur, she created BSPK in 2018 to build loyal relationships. BSPK, which is short for Bespoke, raised a Series A round of funding in October to accelerate its global expansion. Antonio Achille is a senior partner at McKinsey and global head of McKinsey's luxury sector. He's a renowned luxury expert. Antonio is responsible for the Digital Luxury Experience Observatory, a partnership between the management consulting firm and Alta Gamma. Prior to that, he was a partner at the Boston Consulting Group. Fiona Disegni, her role is to develop strategic relationships between the company and startups. She's also a former entrepreneur. In 2014, she founded Rendezvous, the Airbnb for fashion. She's a graduate of Sciences Po Rent and the SCP. Olivier Cadinot is executive director at Mazarine Digital, a Paris creative agency for luxury and cultural brands, including Chanel, Opéra National de Paris, Le Louvre. Previously, Olivier was head of digital activation and data at Hermès. So we'll dedicate, as you said, Antonin, we'll dedicate about 20 minutes to your questions at the end. So feel free to submit them throughout the conversation, and we'll do our best to answer them all. And don't forget to mention the panelists you'd like to direct your question to. So Zornitza, let's start with you. One of the biggest problems for luxury right now is that stores have had to close. You have a solution for that. But first, can you tell us about the funding of BSPK?
With pleasure. And before I begin, I just want to thank you for this opportunity. It's such an honor to be part of this panel, especially because of the entrepreneurship aspect of it. And as a founder and a CEO of a startup company and a Silicon Valley person, I absolutely love and delight in this experience. So thank you for this opportunity. I started BSPK because I felt that it was very important to bring the human back into the client relationship for the kinds of purchases where the emotional experience matters. And I think certainly the pandemic has really driven that point home in terms of how important that is for the brands that are successful at a time when people cannot even go into the store anymore, even if they wanted to. And so BSPK as a solution, as a platform, is a way for sales advisors to personalize this experience and create the same level of trust and emotional excitement, emotional experience, regardless of where the customer is. And that is how, that pandemic has really, really accelerated the opportunity for BSPK and for what we do.
Mm-hmm. And when we spoke, we had the chance to speak a little bit to prepare. You told me that you used to go to the beauty floor and speak to the sales advisors, and that's how you got the idea of creating.
Yeah, so this was so this was exactly the inspiration, because I'm a customer of luxury. I'm a customer of fashion. I love the experience. For me, the ability to engage with a brand, know their story, it's really, it's a pleasant moment in my daily life, and or at the times when I engage in that way. And I think that is what premium and luxury is about. It's about the emotional connection. We want to buy not because we need, we want to buy because we want something. And that is a very, very important aspect of that experience. Business trip in Las Vegas, happened to stop by the mall before my flight, and by chance walked into a luxury boutique of a luxury brand, world famous luxury brand, and I had a great shopping experience. And what was interesting is that I wasn't ready to buy. I fell in love with the dress, didn't buy it, I wasn't shopping. I left the store without buying it, and I flew back to San Francisco. And when I came back, the sales advisor engaged me through messaging, and we sent pictures back and forth. Long story short, I changed my mind. I bought the dress 2 days later. And in the process, I discovered how pleasant that experience was and how natural it felt, because that's what we do with our friends. That's what we do with, no matter where we engage these days. We're in our mobile devices, we're chatting, we're looking at pictures, we're consuming video. So the world has already made that jump to digital, but I felt that retail and luxury had been left behind, sort of in a mindset of we want to be digital, but we're not quite digital. So I went back to that store. I asked more questions. I met with the sales advisor, with his colleagues, with the store manager, and I really was shocked by the absence of any capability for these salespeople who really wanted to create that human touch to personalize the relationship and visualize the relationship with the product for the customer. And when I started BSPK with our first version of our product, I even went with one of our first customers to spend 6 weeks in a boutique as a salesperson, because I wanted to really experience what their job is like. And even to this day, when we work with our customers, we have some of the top luxury brands of the world working with us. The most informative experience for me as a founder and a product leader, in addition to being a CEO, is when I go into the store and I observe what people do, and I hear what they say, and I hear what they want to do. And it's allowed us to really create a platform and experience that is truly tailored to that use case of creating an emotional connection with your client.
So what are the functionalities on your app that enable the sales associates to do their job better? Can you give us examples?
Absolutely. You know, BSPK is a platform. It's a platform that enables building client journeys, curating client journeys, developing client journeys, and tailoring those regionally, and connecting to the client in a personalized way. So it's much more than an app. But in terms of what the sales advisor experiences in their daily life, if you talk to any sales advisor on sales floor, you ask them, what's the first thing you think about in the morning when you get to work, they'll tell you two things. Who can I contact today, and what can I present to them that they'll be excited about? And so BSPK is tailored to enable that. We provide connectivity into SMS, into WhatsApp, into WeChat, into soon coming Line. And so our vision is that we create this communication platform that makes it incredibly easy for the sales advisor to know be able to access their black book, their customer list in a way that's not just focused on the top 200 people they've ever interacted with, but be able to engage the wide audience of a brand. And getting back to that very quickly, store manager I talked to, she said, Zornitza, the 200 people who come to my boutique every year and they spend $100,000 or more, we know them. They're over clientele. They're engaged all the time. They have the best experience. But for me, as a store manager, the opportunities in the thousands of people who walk through every year, they buy their first thing and nobody knows how to get to them and how to build their loyalty. And so that is, you know, in terms of BSPK, that's what we enable associates to do much, much better.
I see, because they were used to reach out to the most loyal clients only. Because
there is nothing new about this. The industry's done it for decades, right? Yes. But how do you engage the rest of us at a time when the consumer behavior is radically changing? And that is where the opportunity is for these brands.
Right. You need to seize every opportunity, right? And the pandemic has proved a big opportunity for you. Can you share with us, or can you give us an indication of how much you've grown over the period during the pandemic?
Our usage has shot up. I mean, we have like a 600% increase in usage, and some of our customers are telling us, my God, you know, thank God we have you, because 70% of our sales are through BSPK. You know, these days, people don't go to stores, associates don't go to work, they stay at home. Yes. So you have to be able to communicate and work with your clients, and they continue to do that. We had one case where boutique had an 85% sell-through. Amazing. I mean, it's like, wow, this is incredible. But I think it also demonstrates the extent to which the pandemic has really put the focus on the client relationship, because traditionally premium and luxury was always really focused on the products, about the products. If you have the best product, people will come and buy it, which is true. But in this day and age, when we have so many distractions, so many opportunities, anything from D2C to experiences, people care about experiences more than buying these days, very often, especially the younger generations. How do you then enhance the opportunity of the brand to grow? And that's where the client relationship all of a sudden takes the front seat. And the pandemic really drove that home, because people could no longer go to your store. And so we've really experienced that upside curve very, very significantly.
Great. So the boundaries are coming down. Brands are redeploying their sales force. Sales associates are now fulfilling online orders. So do you think that online retail associate is the job of the future?
No, I think the job of the future is an informed, well-trained, well-prepared, emotionally intelligent salesperson. It's a person who knows the client, who understands that luxury and premium is about an emotional engagement, and who has access to the right tools and the right data to engage clients in that way, in that personalized way. I often hear the distinction between online and retail. Honestly, I don't think it matters. At the end of the day, the client will buy where it's most convenient, where they have the best experience. And the emphasis here is in the experience, because because that's what differentiates luxury and premium from anything else. Again, it's about the things we want, and the aspect of the fulfillment of my emotional need. I mean, you know, and then how I want to engage with the brand and their story and their beauty and the quality of the product, the service, really, really key. And I think the less people go to stores and the more they interact digitally, which I think this pandemic will radically change how we are accustomed to interacting in a variety of ways, in a variety of circumstances, that becomes that much more important. It's the other pillar. One side you have the product, and then you have the client. If you don't own your supply chain and you don't own your client relationship, you're in trouble. That's my perspective.
So basically, the job of the future is a good retail associate, no matter if it's online or if it's physical.
Yeah, I think the place to invest now for brands is in the training of the sales advisors, in the learning of the client needs, in the enablement through services and technology for the sales advisors to be more effective. And not in a way in which technology does things for you, because that's not personalization. Technology is an enabler. Technology should be in the background, should be invisible, because first and foremost, it's an enabler to create a better experience, not to automatize and you know, create a robotic sort of aspect that really is especially in the premium and luxury, is truly not desired by the customers who engage with that experience.
Great. Thank you, Zornitza. It was a great perspective on what's going on the ground. Now we are going to zoom out and get a macro picture of luxury from one of the best experts, Antonio Achille from McKinsey. Welcome, Antonio.
Welcome to everyone. I'm very honored to be with you guys.
Nice to have you here. So, Antonio, there have been some green shoots of recovery, but the pandemic has been very tough for luxury. How bad is it? And which companies are emerging stronger? Or which brands?
So, no, clearly this has been in 20 years, the second time that the luxury reported a negative decline of sales. The other time was 2008, but this time has been much more pervasive and much more tougher in terms of impact. I mean, depending on the category, top line has been down from 20 to 30%. Geography-wise, clearly Europe and US has been affected the strongest. China has been recovering at a phenomenal speed because it managed better the virus, and also because of the global traveler that accounts for 50% of the shopping. So 50% of luxury shopping is made by, 30% of luxury shopping is made by global traveler, of which the Chinese represent a lion's share. So the global traveler started to stop shopping domestically, and that benefited a lot to China, which rebounded very strong. So this has been clearly putting a lot of unprecedented tension and stress on companies of the sectors. If you ask me which company been reacting better or been less affected, there is no simple answer. There are like 2 or 3 DNA elements which we find more recurringly in the company which reacted best. The first is what we do today, which is their ability to intercept demand digitally or in an omnichannel environment. The second is really the strengths of their brand. Company which have a stronger brand were able to maintain a relationship alive and in a good level of engagement with customers even during the crisis. And I would say the third element, as in past crises, consumers tend to privilege a bit what we call silent luxury, which means brand which invest more in product, in quality, as opposite to the extrovert luxury, which is more about the image, the brand itself. So we see a lot of resilient in investment items, So highly priced leathers and iconic bags, iconic product that proved to be more resilient versus impulse buying or more fast fashion, fast forward collection.
So it means more logo. It means more logo driven, but not
the opposite.
In the fashion.
Exactly the opposite. It means more quality winning over the logo by itself.
Okay. And can you name the companies that are doing better?
No, I don't think it's appropriate to name individual company.
Sure.
But I mean, if you think about some of the French company which have been around in the true luxury space for more than 50, some of them more than 100 years, who have been not over aggressively investing in the brand, but more investing in the product itself. They prove to be very resilient, as opposite to brand which maybe have been capturing more recent wave of growth, more investing in the emotional aspect and the brand allure rather than in the fundamental of the product.
Right. So Christmas is coming. What's your forecast for this holiday season? And for the
Black Friday is in the way as well. So difficult to say. I think again, I do expect that online. I mean, China will be, of course, also because Christmas has a different meaning, continent per se. But if we look at Western economy, I do expect there will be a significant rebound in appetite for luxury, and again, will be benefiting mostly the company that we mentioned before. So, companies which are able to preserve the relationship in a truly omni-channel environment, and that they are delivering, a product which can encounter the taste of a consumer, which is of course more selective during this period. But personally, I'm quite optimistic toward what we will witness in terms of sector rebound in the last part of the year.
In terms of categories, what do you see? What will be the hottest holiday games?
What we see that has been more resistant has been leather. Cosmetics also has been quite resistant. Personal luxury in the sense of ready to wear has been more affected. In the initial part, jewelry was more affected. But then again, if you think about silver jewelry, is a typically gifting category, so it could benefit from the let's say season, which it's just starting. The category which have been a bit more affected and don't expect a huge rebound in the next few weeks is the art luxury, like watches, really true jewelry. That I think it would be a bit more less stronger rebound as part of the year. Yeah.
Okay.
People will still do postponing rather than buying.
And maybe some pent-up demand, hopefully. So maybe some pent-up demand when the restrictions are lifted with the upcoming vaccine, etc. Maybe these categories and also the party dresses, etc. Everything that people haven't bought for the last few months, they could buy it after. Do you think that's a possibility?
Yeah, no. Again, this luxury sector proved to be very resilient. Of course, this time with the store closed pretty much everywhere, with consumer being locked out in the house, it suffered. But I'm very optimistic on the midterm potential of the sector, and also quite optimistic on the ability to emerge stronger from the crisis. It will be though a different sector because, for instance, it would be mostly serving a local consumer. I think we don't see new trend. We see trend which have started being accelerated. So like digital, the prevalence of local shopping versus international shopping, further let's say, Darwinism among wholesalers, with instead vertical player being stronger in the face of the consumer. So I think that it will be a different sector emerging from the crisis.
Okay.
In my view, as strong as before, midterm.
Okay. And do you foresee mergers and acquisitions in the near future?
I mean, every crisis has taught us that there is opportunity to further strengthen your positioning. There's also opportunity for second chances for rare gems. So maybe asset and brands which were bought by either private equity or investor who didn't manage to completely turn around the destiny of the brand. If you think of what happened in North America with the Capri and Versace, a lot of hype expectation were generated, which didn't necessarily translate into reality. So I think there will be definitely a wave of further consolidation, which anyway has been characterized in the sector over the last 2 decades. I mean, the scale of group, the financial scale, the capability scale is proving even more important in time of crisis, and even more important in time of profound change like the one we're discussing, where companies need to really embed digital the core of their capabilities and their operation. So I do expect further consolidation.
Great. Thank you, Antonio. So please stay with us as we move to China, the center of gravity for luxury. And we'll welcome Fiona Disegni from FARFETCH. Fiona, so FARFETCH is doing a majority of its business by selling products online on behalf of boutiques. And it's one of this year's winners as consumers embrace e-commerce, as you mentioned, Antonio. But first, Fiona, tell us what your job consists of.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Bonjour. First, I'm happy to be here as well. I'm from alumni from Sciences Po as well, and entrepreneur. So really good to be here. So yes, as innovation principal, what do I do at FARFETCH? Basically, I'm the bridge between startups and FARFETCH, and I'm really trying to find the right fit between these startups and the needs of FARFETCH. So we really try to be very strategic for the business and create proof of concept to streamline the process, being more efficient. And it's really open innovation, which is really at the core of what FARFETCH has done from the beginning, which is a fashion platform. So my daily time is really to understand what's the best fit with startups that we can see in all the different for all the different teams, for marketing, logistics, operations, all of this.
Okay. Can you give us examples of startups you partnered with or on what kind of innovation?
Sure. One that we launched publicly and we launched in the US very recently is Second Life. So Second Life is a reselling platform of bags. So this is a partnership we've done with the platform called Luxury, previously Upteam. And basically the idea is that they are specialized in the resale of bags, of luxury bags. They have all of their distribution network, and we get them access to all of our traffic and all of our stamp of approval. And this is the way we created together Second Life. So and this really a way for our customers to sell their luxury bags and benefit from FARFETCH vouchers instead. So that's one of the startups. But we worked also on virtual try-on. For instance, we built our own virtual try-on solutions involving 2 startups together to make sure that we could have the best results for sneakers. So we work on very different levels. Okay.
So FARFETCH is much more than a marketplace. It's a real platform, as you said.
It's much more than a marketplace. We have a marketplace where we sell basically clothes and accessories for 400 brands and 700 boutiques. So we really doing this on their behalf for them. But at the same time, we have other services such as FARFETCH Platform Solutions, which is like a Shopify for luxury, where we do websites for the brands. We do CRM, logistic, fulfillment by FARFETCH as well. And we also have Store of the Future, which is a kind of omnichannel retail solution for clients.
Okay. I feel that many people in the audience tonight would consider your job as the dream job. I'm sure finding the most innovative startups, it must be quite exciting. But so FARFETCH just made a massive deal with Alibaba and Richemont. Can you tell us about the rationale behind this deal?
Yes, so Alibaba and Richemont invested a few weeks ago about $1.1 billion into FARFETCH and also into its operation in China. It's clearly like a major stamp of approval for FARFETCH because it really positioned us as the leading player in the online luxury market. But what's interesting is that it's really at the core of our DNA. Because first, it reflects our international ambition, our global ambition. We really want to be a player that is, helping and supporting all the different brands and all the different players within the industry. And we really think within as an ecosystem partner. And this is why it's very consistent with FARFETCH, because we've always been in this mindset of how we can basically create consolidation in the space, how we can create more service and develop better luxury experience for all the partners in the industry.
But you had partnerships with JD.com, with Tencent. What's different this time?
Yes, so with Alibaba, basically, we are going to be part of their Tmall platform, which is their luxury platform for Chinese consumer. And basically, we'll get access to a network of about 700 million customers with Alibaba. So this is quite massive. But we will keep our relationship with Tencent, and we are keeping our relationship to be on WeChat specifically with them. And basically, I think Richemont is Richemont and Kering, because Kering invested as well. It's giving us a wider reach in terms of clients, and I think this is super important for us. So it's not just about China, but it's really about the whole ecosystem.
Great. Thank you. Antonio, you just put out a report of 158 pages on China. It's called Understanding Chinese Consumers, Growth Engine of the World. So, Antonio, what do we need to understand about the Chinese consumer, and who is getting it right?
So let's clarify before that there were like 30 colleagues of mine contributing to build the 150 pages. Otherwise, some of a bit I have an issue with writing. I just edit directly the section on luxury. Okay. So Laure, what is exactly your question? How the Chinese consumer is changing, or what is it?
What do we need to understand about the Chinese consumer?
You have 10 minutes. So again, as we discussed before.
Yes.
Sorry?
No, no, I was saying we don't have 10 minutes, unfortunately, because we have a very packed schedule tonight. But go ahead. We are.
I would be very fast. So I think, as I said before, I think that the beauty or the peculiarity of this COVID crisis is that it didn't fully introduce new trends, it accelerated trends. When it comes to China, we see like 4 or 5 major trends, which were already at work before, which now are even more visible. The first one is really about digitalization. China's been, FARFETCH really is very aware of that, a pioneer on many dimensions, but still with plenty of headroom in terms of growing. And, what we have seen during the crisis is that there's been a completely different demographic of Chinese consumer starting having B2B interaction with the brands,
right,
through online channels. In a great majority of them, they really like it. Like, 70% of those consumers, they appreciate it, they found it positive, and 55% of those consumers, they plan to stay on a hybrid model. So the word consumer were not yet shopping online. So this boost of online and commerce is definitely has to stay. And this crisis has made the Chinese consumer kind of leapfrogging 3 or 4 years in terms of evolution speed into that.
Okay. And in terms of buying pattern, go ahead. Now, I was wondering, in terms of buying patterns, how do they differ from the Western consumers?
So that's a good question. I don't think there is necessarily, and maybe the colleague from FARFETCH can comment better. I think is again, one element which is, for instance, not very present in terms of concern or barrier in Western consumer, which instead is very present for Chinese, is to be reassured about the authenticity of the product, with still counterfeiting being an issue. So that is definitely a difference. Another difference, I think normally what we see is a consumer which is much more decisive in completing a transaction versus the Western European consumer, which normally tend to have a longer process in terms of selecting and deciding on a purchase. But otherwise, I think that the pattern they're not dramatically different. So, as I was saying, go ahead.
They are very tech savvy. So do luxury brands need to adapt and be more innovative than usual to win them over?
But, well, I would say yes, in the sense that, especially in China, there is a significant portion of consumer which are kind of digital native. And, the role of some specific platform we mentioned before, WeChat, is a completely different role and not necessarily as an equivalent of what we have in the Western economy. So definitely that is our factor that need to be considered to be, to define a winning recipe for China.
Right. Live stream.
Go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I would say, but it's not just about, e-commerce and digital. There are at least another couple of things worth mentioning about changes we witnessed for the Chinese consumer. One is, as mentioned before, a declining of global exposure. Again, it's not necessarily new because the China economy was already trying to repatriate a lot of demand. Also, if we talk about luxury, the price differential between Europe and China was increasingly unsustainable. But clearly, this crisis has really accelerated the pace of repatriation of demand. Another aspect which we didn't expect, but I think is worth mentioning, is the increasing attitude of Chinese consumer, even younger generation, to save money. Normally, consumer in China were spending the majority of their disposable income. They were really projecting in the future and very much optimistic about the future. So compared to some of the Western European economy, and especially Europe or Japan, they had a much lower propensity towards saving. This has been quite accelerated during the crisis. So this is just to say, it's not only about digital, even though, of course, digital is a very central element in terms of change that the consumer manifested during the COVID.
That's very interesting. So live stream shopping has become widely popular in China. Is that something that FARFETCH is considering, Fiona?
Yes, for sure. And actually, we already do things in China in terms of like. So, as you may know or you may not know, but Harrods is one of our clients from FARFETCH platform solution. And during the last week, we did a Harrods studio in Shanghai. So collaboratively with Harrods, our team created like online, offline events series of offline and online events via live stream with social media and so on. So that's already things that we are doing, and clearly that we see as the new way of shopping, and in such a new virtual world, but also the kind of tool that will help to maintain a one-to-one relationship and personalization, which is really at the core of the luxury experience. So we really see it as an opportunity to expand even more the luxury experience itself.
Great. Zornitza, how is BSPK approaching the Chinese market?
The Chinese market is very important and also very different. As was already said, I mean, clearly, a vast percentage of the sales in premium and luxury come from China. And we are already getting requests, and have been for a while, from our customers to enable BSPK for the Chinese market. And not just Chinese, Asia more broadly. Japan is also a big consumer of luxury. And so WeChat line are sort of key initiatives, and we're going to be announcing something very soon in that realm. But all I can say is that it's very important. One interesting thing about the China market is that the behavior and the methods of engagement of the consumer are different than in the Western world. I think Chinese consumers are much more tech savvy. They vastly engage online first or digitally first. The role of the KOLs is super powerful. And at the same time, I think there was a study recently I read, maybe even published by one of the big consulting firms. I don't want to say McKinsey, but I think it was one of the big two, which was that still 85% of Chinese shoppers would like to go and buy in the store, even though they discover digitally. Now, I think that's going to change with the pandemic. Live streaming is going to be very important. But at the end of the day, I come back to what I said earlier, both in Asia and I think in the Western world, it's going to be less and less important where you buy. As long as you trust the brand, you have a trusted person. Authenticity is certainly important in China, and the verification of that. And you trust both the brand and the quality of the product and what you're buying, and you also have a great experience. I think the challenge, for video streaming is going to be, can the brands deliver that great experience? I mean, yes, at this time when people are stuck at home, maybe. But my personal belief actually is that when the pandemic subsides in the West, the Asian consumer will be back. They will come back strongly, because if you look at the growth rates of wealth in China and Asia, and they've already emerged from the pandemic, they're vastly recovered and it's growing. So that customer will be back in Europe. And it's going to be important for brands to be prepared for that, I think.
Okay, thank you, Zornitza. So I just want to remind everyone that you can share questions throughout the conference, and we will do our best to reply to them at the end. Maybe we can take a quick question from Roxanne Robinson, with a journalist at Forbes. We take the question from Roxanne right now because it's on the Chinese topic. So it's a question for Antonio. Antonio, do you think that Chinese consumer is as concerned with the luxury experience as Westerners? Do they need clienteling and customer care like BSPK from the sales associates that Westerners do?
Yeah, no, thank you, Roxanne, for the question, which is a very relevant one. When it comes to the experience in the store, the Chinese consumer in luxury honestly has been used to an experience which was, if you think in terms of value for money, worse than in Europe. Because despite all the effort the luxury brand put to have really a best selling environment in China, they never replicate the quality of the storytelling in Europe. It will always be very difficult to retain store sales force. There has been always a lot of rotation, so not easy to have really qualified people knowing the product. If you go in a boutique in Europe, some of the salesperson of the brand from 20 years. They're very deep on the product. That's not easy to replicate in China. And then, as we discussed before, the price of luxury goods in China used to trade 20, 30, 40% premium versus Europe, depending on the policies of the individual brands and also the FX fluctuation. So there is, in a sense, a bit getting the worst side of the equation. I think now if we move to digital, I believe that the bar will be very high and there will not be excuse because again, there are some factual limitations to replicate the quality of store experience in Europe that the consumer has in Europe to replicate in China. When it comes to digital, brands need to think carefully because they're gonna face a very challenging consumer, and there will not be technical limitation to provide a super exciting and tailored experience to them. So I think when it comes to digital, the consumer in China will be more demanding, and we really want to have something which is tailored. So in terms of influencer, in terms of language, in terms of product selection, very authentic and of the highest quality.
I just wanted to say there is also a return of offline that is coming a lot, and we see that in China. Basically, we tend to have like fashion exhibition, like for instance, Dior fashion exhibition that was in Europe has been put in in China directly, and they tend to like create a lot of events around this new physical places. And we also created private dinners for private clients. Where we invite specific people. So I think it's super important. The offline aspect is also very, very key. And it's really part of this clienteling process, even more in China than before.
Thank you for sharing your insights. So now let's take a moment to shift our focus on data and digital performance. So we are going to bring Olivier to join us. Sorry, Olivier, you've been waiting. Welcome, Olivier. Are you here?
Okay, I was waiting with my micro off, so I'm very happy to be with you, all of you.
Sorry, we are quite late, but it was so interesting so far what everyone was saying, but you have great things to share with us tonight as well. So Zornitza, how do you gain the consumer trust needed to aggregate data?
I think consumers are willing to share data when there is value in doing so. What that means is that as a customer, if I believe that sharing my data with my salesperson will really help me have a better experience, better selection, more timely selection, access to things that I want but are of limited supply or availability, I'm more than happy to share my data. And where data collection has developed sort of this bad rap, so to speak, is when brands mindlessly collect the data and don't do that with the buy-in, with the permission, with the consent of the customer. And I don't mean just in terms of the GDPR and the California Privacy Act requirements. It's above and beyond that. It's not just have you signed here. It's how do I use your data and how do I engage with you once you give me that trust and that access to you. Right. And I think that's where that is super, super important.
Olivier, do you agree? Consent is key?
Yeah, mainly when it comes to data, I think today brands are very mature. They are very transparent regarding what I call the data deal, because it's like a deal. They are very clear regarding the benefits for the user of sharing data. On every website, you have a very detailed data sharing explanation. So I think brands are very mature, and consumer is becoming very mature regarding data, because it's a deal between consumer and brand. It's an agreement. So I'm sharing my data. You are personalizing the experience. Sometimes it's not about only being very pushy with data. Sometimes I have the example of Hermes. Hermes is managing data differently because they think that they need to regulate the commercial pressure by analyzing data. So data is made to not overwhelm a user with too much email or push or digital push. Sometimes data could be a very good thing, very good. Data is not something by nature that is, wrong. The wrong thing is we don't have scenario. We don't have very clear scenario with data, and I think luxury brands are not very cutting edge or mature regarding the scenario with data. They are using data in a very random way. They don't know exactly how to segment. They are very new in the data landscape, so they are learning.
And do you think the DTC brands, the so-called digital native brands, are more cutting edge on that front? And do you think some large-scale luxury brands can learn from them?
Actually, many luxury brands are launching DTC programs. Okay, some programs are very visible, and other programs are very confidential. Are very small clubs of brand lovers, but luxury brands are launching DTC programs for other reasons than Yves Rocher or Nespresso or premium brands. The reason are to create a very strong community of lifestyle ambassadors. They want to bond, to connect very deeply with their clients. And that's the main reason that is motivating this program, this DTC program, is to be very close to the clients, to better understand these clients, and to create a club spirit. The other reason is because of the pandemic. I have the example of champagne brands, which are trying to sell directly the product to the clients. So there is also objective of being very close to clients in terms of transaction. So it's another motivation to launch this kind of program. And the last is the data, because luxury brands are not very in advance regarding the data capture, regarding the digital performance. And to finish, there is a big shift regarding the brief agency as Mazarine is receiving from clients. In 2015, 2016 or 17, the brief was very creative focused, very creative driven. Today we have brief with many KPIs. It's very new. When we launched at Mazarine the new platform of Valentino.com, the brief was very data driven. It was amazing. The creation was not the center of the brief. It was about how to sell, to do a cross-sell, upsell, so how the platform could engage users to buy much more than one product, to discover the richness of the collection. So today, the luxury brands are very performance-oriented, and we are assisting, all of us, of the merge between performance and creation. And it's happening just since, I would say, 2 years. It's very new.
Fiona, do you agree? And I know that FARFETCH launched with Chanel the store of the future. Maybe you can tell us about what this is about and if data are involved.
Yes. Yes, so basically Chanel has been our first client of what we call our augmented retail technology, which involved basically a consumer app so far, a shop floor app, and connected displays, as we said. So we launched basically last year in May, our first pilot in Cambon, in the first boutique of Chanel, with really the idea to connect the clients with the boutique, to connect omni-channel online and offline, and really use digital as an enabler of experience and human relationship. And we had basically these three components. So the customer app, which is really about allowing the customers to take also inspiration from social media and drive them into their wish list directly. For instance, in the boutique, they can directly connect the fashion advisor which are the salespeople. The fashion advisor can actually connect directly with an application and see directly the profile of the customer, understanding their previous purchase, their wish list, online and offline, and really give them some recommendation on the floor. But also the connected mirror, which is in the fitting room, when the customer is trying an item, is really displaying automatically the runway look of this item, how it was styled during the show, and the fashion advisor can push recommendations to the mirror, to the customer. So that's really the first step. And we have just rolled out actually last week these 3 solutions to 2 further boutiques, and we plan to by mid next year to 5 boutiques. So that's really our first clients, but the goal is of course to expand this.
Yeah, Fiona, I have a question, Fiona, because at Mazarine we are working for this project. We are not in partnership with FARFETCH, but we are working for Chanel, and we are working more or less on the content, on the enriched content that the visitors, the clients can view in the boutique. So, what are the learnings for you of this experiment? What are to be very honest and direct?
But I think it's really about being super customized. I think starting with Chanel was a super high standard, and super high requirements, because this is the highest luxury brand with the highest requirements. So I think getting the perfect experience was very ambitious on our side. And I think it's so customization about the customer, really understanding the brand, I think is super important. And I think it's also about support and format, the mirror, how we actually really use it, and not really being gimmicky, but really being, relevant in terms of use case, and why are we going to do this? Why do we push as content? And so I think we are still at the first stage of this. But we are moving forward. I think we still have a lot of things to think about, but also the new ecosystem is with the pandemic is actually giving us more opportunities, I think, to input things in store, to really make it even more attractive for people to come into the store and get really access to an experience.
You mean during the pandemic? It's even more.
I mean, with the pandemic, at least, people going to a store is way more an effort for people. Yes. So they need to have something incredible to come to a store even more than before. Sure. So why come to the store, and why don't they just shop at home? So that's the whole challenge.
Right. Antonio, in what ways can luxury brands use data to improve service, and in what ways the data can help the luxury brands?
So short answer, luxury brand will hugely benefit for a better use of data. It will be one of the most significant competitive element in the next year to come, together, of course, with product and brands. And paradoxically will bring a brand back to their origin, in the sense that even nowadays, if you join LVMH, they will pull out the letter there. Monsieur Vuitton was writing to his customers, who knows by heart. So he was writing a letter to Laure, knowing that she was traveling maybe to US, and recommending a specific bag for the hat she just bought. So the communication was very authentic, very meaningful, very contextual. As brands grow bigger, they command the same price premium, but they completely lost authenticity. So advanced analytics, for instance, can bring back a more personalized engagement with consumer, being more meaningful, proposing something which is relevant rather than pushing something which is irrelevant. And this is just one aspect. Then there's all the back of the house, where advanced analytics can support the decision in merchandising, can support decision in supply chain. So data will be important to luxury, as is important to other sector. Will be non-negotiable. It need to be very deep and need to be very embedded in the organization. It should be something the executive team, the CEO deal with. It should not be put down in the IT department.
Mm-hmm. Can data help them on the CSR front in terms of sustainability? Can they use data to improve?
Yeah. I mean, if you think nowadays, unsold product are put a bit in a warehouse cemetery. Normally, it's very difficult to retrieve information, for instance, on the ingredient, the material of the product. So data, for instance, can move to kind of blockchain traceability of product, can help to take also more tailored decision on where to stock inventory, where not to stock inventory. So better use of data can also contribute on the social and sustainability side of the equation.
So I remind everyone that we will take questions at the end, because I see we have many questions now, but don't worry, we'll answer them at the end. So Zornitza, before we wrap up this section on data and digital performance, I wanted to have your opinion. How can the brands best manage their data? Should they create internal departments or with the data hubs? Or do they use external experts? What's the best way to go?
I think in terms of...
Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, you go. Go ahead.
Thank you. I will be quick. I'm very shocked by the lack of scenario. I'm coming back to my word. I don't know if everyone can understand the terms of scenario, but you need to know what your objectives are and what you want to do with this data. I'm very shocked because we are capturing too much data with Google Analytics, with all the tracker, on the measurement tools. So there is a big, massive dose of data, but we don't know exactly what to do with this data. And I'm very shocked by these findings. So the question is how to replicate the intimacy of the relationship between in boutique. It's very intimate. We are talking with the fashion advisor. So how can we leverage data to replicate this connection, this link on digital? This is the question.
That's super interesting. Thank you. Zornitza, you were about to say.
Yeah, I agree with Olivier's perspective, especially because even like the example that was given, Mr. Vuitton recommending a bag that matches had perfect example. The recommendation comes because of the knowledge of the customer. And one thing that I'm surprised by in working with our customers, and we ingest our customers' data, we help them create client journeys based on that, we help them enrich that data. But what we see today in terms of data for many, many brands, some of the leading brands of the world, it really comes down to name, email, maybe a phone number, and a bunch of SKUs. And that's the extent of the knowledge of the customer. And that is not sufficient. It's not sufficient to create a great experience, to personalize the experience, to create authenticity. And I think that's where, to get back to your question, should brands do this internally or externally? I think the brand owns its customer data. And actually one thing that, with BSPK, we really felt very strongly about is that by creating that experience where, the account provisioning is centrally managed by the brand through BSPK, we remove the ability for the sales advisor to store data on their personal device and just take it away when they leave their employer. So that control and knowledge and access to data, what the engagement looks like, what's been said, when it was said, how often, what happened after the customer came and bought their first item, then they bought a second time, were they happy, what was the care and repair, what was the next step, all of those, connecting the dots, or maybe they came from e-commerce, knowing what they bought in e-commerce as Fiona was describing, and then bringing that into the store recommendation path. Super, super important. And I don't think that brands, from what I've seen, are there today. And so how do you get there quickly? Because, the consumer is where they're at and technology is advancing and we're going to move into the direction where the market is already going. I don't think brands should do that themselves. I mean, the technological expertise to actually make the data they collect actionable, it requires a different mindset. And I do think that when we look at the success of Amazon, of Google, of Facebook, the luxury market cannot compete with that. There's the technological depth of technical expertise, access. It's just it's a different scale. And so, how do you succeed in this market? Yes, you own your data. You carefully collect your data. You enrich that data with more than just the name and the address and the email. But what do you do with it? And that's where sort of the rubber meets the road. Is what do you do with that data? How do you tailor the journey, and how does that create a better experience? I think that's what's really important here.
Right. But you
Laure,
say you own...
Laure, I just want to throw two words in the discussion.
Sure,
just also to anchor, I completely agree with every single word that Zornitza said, but just two words I think is important to share. One is GDPR. The second one is identity resolution, because those are very concrete let's say, obstacle that brands need to face beyond the internal change management that is very deep to go in the direction Zornitza was mentioning. GDPR, so the data protection, the fact that you can use data only if the consumer explicitly opt-in, which is a rule in Europe, but is becoming increasingly, starting from California, also a rule from US. And by the way, global brands apply normally the stricter legislation also to US is very important. And the second one is identity resolution, which means how you can recognize the same consumer when he's selling, buying in store, buying online, or watching TV. 50% of TV will be internet TV. So how you can, resolve the fact that you can recognize him and then tailor the message or the storytelling across the different channels. Those would be very important, let's say, challenge to go in the direction we all suggest brands should go.
Okay, that's very clear. Thank you. Zornitza, when you say that brands should own their data, does that mean that they should collect them? Can they have the resources internally to collect, or how does it work?
Well, of course, that depends. That requires the customer consent, for sure.
Yeah,
and what I mean by the reason brands can own their data in the first place, because they're the touch point of the customer. Their sales advisor, is asking the customer, "Hey, may I contact you? Please sign off here and tell me how you want to be contacted." And the sales advisor is the person building that trust and providing the value for the customer to be willing to share their data in the first place. And then you can, of course, talk about the analog in e-commerce. If you go on the website and you're buying and you want to enter, you create your profile, etc. So the method of collection is irrelevant. I think what's key is that it has to be built on trust. There has to be explicit consent. And there has to be a strategy about how the brand will provide value with that data. Because the worst experience you can give somebody is to take their data and purposefully or inadvertently abuse that privilege. It's really a privilege. I mean, if we think about data going forward, it's luxury. The access to data today is so private, and people are so tired of being marketed at. Nobody wants to be marketed at, but they're more than willing to share when they trust you. And so the brand owns that experience. They need to create that experience, and of course, they need to protect the integrity of that data and that experience. So that is, that's how I see, how we see the world at BSPK.
Great, thank you. It feels like you all agree on that point, right? On data. It was super interesting. So we thought we would end the evening on storytelling, on digital storytelling, meaning the communications of brands online. So as we say in the US, necessity is the mother of invention. So what creative solutions were found during this pandemic, were born during this pandemic? Olivier, would you like to start?
Yes, absolutely. So regarding, you want me to focus specifically on this solution to make digital a way to connect with people, or you want me to explain much more the storytelling and the luxury brands? Could you precise your question, please?
It's more about what do you have examples in mind, or can you share? I don't know if you can share from your agency, but innovative things that were born during this pandemic in terms of content.
Okay, we are going to talk about the tool that we developed, and of course, I have the focus of Mazarine because we try to develop a new video player, very enriched in terms of interactivity to make people interact directly with the brand during the fashion show, during the collection presentation in boutique. So we developed this tool in a very short time. It's like 2 months. We developed this new solution, but it's just an example. Balmain has used this smart player. The name is the smart player. Balmain has used this solution for his latest fashion show. And it was very interesting to see how people can interact with the look of the collection, to sometimes get the product information, and sometimes generate appointments in boutique, to generate a rendezvous in boutique. So it's interesting that in this perspective, the COVID has accelerated the development of remote sales solution or shoppable video solutions. So it's one of the examples. The other example is Louis Vuitton, because there is a remarkable, it's not a client of Mazarine, there is a remarkable initiative during the September fashion show of Louis Vuitton. And the camera were replacing the people. You saw this, I think everyone has saw this fashion show.
Yes.
So they use this COVID in the storytelling of the fashion show. As you was unable to change the view of the fashion show, you were assisting in, I think, Louis Vuitton has reinvented the way of watching fashion shows. So it's very interesting.
Yes.
There is also, to finish, other initiative, but it's much more confidential and it's very secret. So I can tell you.
Okay, so tell us.
Yeah.
We want to know now.
I have an example of a major leading French houses, luxury house. It's very small community of clients, like 10 clients, discussing with a fashion advisor to discover the collection, but in exclusivity. It's a very private group of discussion, and I think this is exactly the definition of luxury. It's private, it's confidential, it's direct. So digital is an enabler to create this very small group of super clients. It's very interesting, but it's very secret. It's not massive. It's a little group, but it's very effective in terms of sales, of conversion, because you can book your visit in boutique. I have a private visit in boutique, so it's very, very efficient for luxury.
I've learned that in China, influencers, KOL, have WhatsApp groups WeChat groups, of course, with 500 people each. And these are very powerful. It's before or after live streaming, and it could be a great way to improve the sales.
Just to finish, I have a last example, but it's much more related to storytelling and not commercial. Commercial topic. It's much more about the heritage of the brand and the value of the brand. Many brands, as Boucheron, as Bottega Veneta, created some podcasts during the pandemic. Very, very artistic, cultural podcasts. Bottega Veneta has created the Résidence d'Artistes. It's an artist, I don't know how to say it in English, but there is a lot of cultural initiative during the confinement and partnership with Opéra de Paris, for instance, with Chanel. So there is a lot of content, podcast, mini-series. Like, it's amazing how luxury brands are a very rich creator of content and story. So it's very interesting in this aspect as well.
And we've seen some collaborations with gaming. Louis Vuitton with the League of Legends, And the latest one is Balenciaga with a gaming platform for its latest collection. So do you see, first, do we have some indication of how these perform in terms of are these effective?
We don't have clear KPIs because the gaming platform like Electronic Arts or Ubisoft are very private. They can't share their KPIs, but what we know is the massive audience is super engaged in the game. The gaming platform are a place of super engagement. So it's very interesting how luxury brands are coming into this field, the gaming field, the street culture field, the pop culture field, but gaming is really a part of the pop culture. Yeah, because people are already engaged. They are playing, so they are already engaged. So they are super sensitive to brand message. So it's super smart.
Fiona, do you agree? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on gaming.
Yes, definitely. And it's a topic we're looking at closely at FARFETCH, more globally around 3D. But yeah, it's. I think it's also the kind of it's the new playground that's related to our new virtual world. Like so far, basically the fact that with the pandemic now, we are much more in virtual worlds, and this is kind of the expansion on how brands have to investigate the gaming field as well. And it's not only for gamers. And I think this is also the thing is that we have an image of gamers of nerdy, guys garage. Whereas actually you have daily life gamers like Candy Crush and so on, and you have a lot of people as well, and also completely, absolutely not nerd. So I think it's super interesting the way the brands have to develop themselves within this game. I think it's you have of course the idea of creating exclusive collections to create skins. So basically the T-shirt, T-shirt of the players in the game. But I think there are more and more opportunities. It's just the beginning. What is super interesting is that Twitch, for instance, for me is a very interesting platform. It's the world-leading live streaming platform for gamers, but today it's become the kind of new YouTube for entertainment. Right. Super interesting. Like for instance, I've seen that the beauty influencer called Michelle Fan, she actually had 9 million followers on YouTube, and she actually going on Twitch every time, and she hosted a live stream on the platform to play League of Legends, and at the same time promoting her brand M Cosmetic at the same time. So I think we are seeing a really completely new format, and it's very exciting, I think.
So far, it's mostly for beauty brands, or are the big luxury brands already on Twitch?
They are as well. This is starting, but Burberry did their last autumn-winter collection. They introduced they streamed their collections on Twitch as well. So this is just the beginning, and the brand needs to understand how to leverage it. It's still kind of a mystery world, and that's the big challenge of how we make these two worlds, gaming and fashion, really meet, because they really talk different language.
Right. So is there a risk of degradation of your brand equity by going to these platforms?
I think there is a big part of how you choose the game, how you curate it, because clearly there's a lot of war games, all of this. You don't want to be associated with this when you're a luxury brand. So you really need to be careful in which kind of game you are ending up, basically, and why is it resonating with the brands? Why is it resonating with the DNA of the brands? What you want to convey as a message? How you are going to give a different vision of the brand, but still consistent. So I think this is why the fashion industry needs to be much more educated as well on this industry.
Okay. Well, sadly, we have to wrap this panel. We've had a great discussion. We have many students in the audience, and they are thinking about their future. Sadly, luxury has lost 40,000 jobs, according to Vogue Business. However, there are some good news. New jobs are emerging, and particularly in customer experience. And many of the tech disruptors, like TikTok, are hiring. So is FARFETCH hiring?
Yes, they do. Of course, they do, and they always look for the best talents. They are all over the world, so I think it's important to mention. Check on farfetchcareers.com. That's the best way. What kind of opportunity? For now, and like so many interns, so that's the issue with the company now. But freelancers a bit more. So watch out.
And Zornitza, does BSPK hire?
We're absolutely hiring. We're the growth stage, so yes, very much so. And our customers are global, our business is global, so we do hire globally. And I guess if I was to offer a thought on how to think about the future job after graduation, it's thinking about what it is that you want to do, what's in your heart. It really, those first jobs, they really make a difference in terms of shaping the experience and their learning experience. And for someone coming out of school, it's important to have a great first positive experience. And we like the things we love, so knowing what you like and want to do is, I think, important for a person in that position.
I meant to ask you what your advice would be for students about to graduate and start their career and go out in this industry. So that would be your advice?
That would be my advice. But of course, given that this audience has the entrepreneurial bent, I'm an entrepreneur. I spent my entire career at startups in Silicon Valley, and this is my third company. I love the experience. And I say this because also, as I mentioned earlier, I also am a guest lecturer at Wharton in the entrepreneurship program at Wharton. And that question comes up, can I start a company? Should I start a company? And for those of you thinking about starting a company, you really need to want to start a company. It's hard. It's very, very, very hard. And at the same time, it's incredibly rewarding. And so the mindset of an entrepreneur is that you like challenge and you thrive on challenge. And if you're not that kind of person, I would say a bigger company is a much stronger path for learning and growth. But for those of us who love that thrill of the challenge and the creation, of course I'm biased, but there's nothing more rewarding than that. And that's kind of, I guess, finishing on a positive note here.
Great, thank you. Fiona, you're also an entrepreneur. So what is your advice for students who are about to start their career?
Sure. First, don't hesitate to test and to try. I think it's important. So it's even easier when you are still a student. So I strongly encourage you to start projects, try to do things, because when you are a student, you don't risk so much. So do it. And be curious, really. I think be curious. Try to get as much information about what's going on. Don't dare to talk to people on LinkedIn, to ask them, about their job, about what they do. I think it's very important to just prepare this. You don't have to be in an internship to really learn. So I think just take it as a daily, daily thing that you can do just by talking with someone. So I think that's that.
Great. Olivier, what is your advice to the students tonight?
I think the challenge for students, for young people, for students actually, is to be hybrid. It's to mix very contrasted competencies. And we can see it in the digital landscape. For instance, the name of the job in digital are very, very hybrid, like creative developer or UX architect or digital performance strategist. So today we are combining many fields of expertise, and we are building hybrid job. So you need to be very excellent in many fields and to connect connect your competencies to develop new hybrid job. And this is what I can see in Mazarine. We are hiring an amplification manager. So
wow,
we have so many.
That's a title. It's quite a title,
that's a super title. Being very precise and hybrid in the meantime. This is a big challenge. So curiosity is the key, and test. I'm very agree with Fiona. Test, and try.
Okay, Antonio, what is your advice for the students?
I would say first to be absolutely optimistic about the future. I'm not sure if we're gonna be still using iPhone to communicate in 10 years from now, but I'm sure people will still use champagne to celebrate. So luxury has a bright future. So if you're passionate about the sector, I think it's a right place to invest. And I believe also there will be a significant level of growth and optimism after we emerge from the crisis. So it's a perfect moment for being a student. It will be a perfect moment to search for an opportunity. Then I might sound generic, but follow a bit your instinct and your dreams, because the sector definitely is becoming more professional, is requiring more talent, diverse set of talent has been said before. So definitely there will be space for accommodate your dreams if this is where you want to make a career.
Great, thank you. So now we are handing over to the audience for final questions. I have to apologize because we only have 10 minutes left. We have a question here from Eileen. It's a question for Antonio. Before COVID, luxury wholesale was manual and difficult. Brands that were focusing on D2C channels. Do you think wholesale will gain strength as brands look again to retailers to share risk to help luxury recover?
I think we can save time with a short answer, which is no. I don't think wholesale will get stronger out of this. Absolutely. Unfortunately, no, because I think it was a richness in terms of diversity. But it was already very weakened before. Many, independent wholesaler actually were kept alive by players like FARFETCH, giving them a second chance. But it's very much polarizing versus either online or on store. So I don't think wholesale getting stronger out of the retail of the COVID.
Okay, thank you. Now we have a question from Adrien Pegon. This is a question for Fiona and Antonio. Thanks for sharing your insights. Once international travel resumes in China, do you think the FARFETCH and Tmall rationale, having a global assortment versus localized assortments that brands have on Tmall, will still be key, as Chinese consumers will travel and get products cheaper overseas as they did in the past?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. But I believe that on my side, and I don't know what Antonio will say, but I believe that Tmall is actually much more than just getting access to the assortment, getting access to. It's much more than just the price. I think it's really also about the segmentation. So it's really having access to a very granular segmentation of the Chinese audience and making sure that you really target the right people. So for the brands, it's actually really interesting to still go on Tmall and to have a direct access to this customer. So I think we will have consumers that go, travelers, Chinese travelers, that we still get the product cheaper. But I think that the local demand is going to increase based on this transition as well. And that tools like Tmall and so on will really be even more effective.
Great. So does anyone else have questions? Do the students who are with us tonight have questions? They can intervene directly with the video. So feel free. We still have a few minutes with our speaker, so you can take advantage.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
So I have a question for Zornitza. You have a rather original background because you don't have a scientific background, but a background in international relations and business. So first of all, why is not having a scientific background an obstacle to launching a BSPK startup largely focused on digital technology? And bring your advantages and tools to launch your startup. Thank you.
So I'm not an engineer by training, but I'm technical, and I'm technical because I've been in the industry for a long time, working with engineers and thinking like an engineer. So it's less about the training; it's more about the ability to think analytically and understand and segment and sort of try to make sense of a market opportunity at the intersection with a technology trend. I do think that actually being technical but not being an engineer has greatly benefited me in what I do, because I can put myself in the shoes of the end user and I can try to think and see their point of view of wanting to use technology, and it's enabled me to leverage technology but build solutions, including BSPK, that feel natural, that get out of the way. You know, the worst thing for an end user is to get stuck on poor interface, difficulty of the interaction. And to give examples of the most successful platforms in the world, WeChat, WhatsApp, I mean, the simplicity of these applications, of how natural they feel to people, it's amazing. Instagram, I mean, these are use cases where you have an incredibly complicated and powerful technology to enable that experience, but the end user experience and interaction is fluid and easy. And I think it requires having that perspective of the non-technical user and the analytical engineer to be able to create these kinds of solutions.
Great, thank you. So we have time for one more question, two max. May I ask you to introduce yourself when you ask a question to the speakers? We have a question on the chat from Brian. I'm curious about the Eileen question about the future of wholesale. Are these multi-brand stores better at creating relationship, trust, and turning into sales and data in customers? And is it different between APAC and West, Asia Pacific, and the West? Brian didn't mention with a question 4, probably for Fiona or Antonio. I don't know.
I can give a quick perspective. So wholesale has had historically a very key role in the sector on many aspects. So for small brand, it was basically financing the development of the collection. So the way a brand initially, historically was developing was to pre-sale the collection to clients, to wholesales, and then based on that, develop the collection after collection and growth. So wholesale was really as a kind of nursing role for emerging brand. Then it was very good in doing curated assortment, which, by the way, is something FARFETCH has clearly understood because it's sourced by sourcing, and Fiona can comment on wholesale originally had access to product, but also to curated products. So it definitely had a very good relationship. And carrying a multi-brand assortment, he also had ability to break a bit the dogma of the total look and the psychological dependency on one brand only. So it definitely had a lot of values. Unfortunately, it's very economically fragile. So now brand can overcome the crisis because they have part of group, or they have been they have relatively larger financial shoulder. Some of these independent boutique, but also some of the larger North American wholesale were not able to survive a situation where they had to lose 2 seasons in a row. So it is a channel which is very fragile. Consumer is a bit substituting online the appetite for multi-brand experience. So yes, there will be still place for super created wholesaler. For in some region, there will be space for department store. In some other region, there will be space for malls, like in Asia or in the Middle East. But I don't think the pendulum will swing back where wholesale will be relevant as it used to be 2 decades ago. That's my very deep conviction on that.
Okay, thank you, Antonio. I think that answers Brian's question. So if we don't have other questions, I think we will wrap this panel. Thank you to our great speakers tonight. It was a thought-provoking conversation. It was very interesting. So thank you very much. And thanks to all the people who joined us tonight. Have a really nice evening. And Zornitza, I know that you're in the US, so happy Thanksgiving tomorrow.
Thank you.
Happy holidays. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Very much.